hanging out with the professor here in our Sunday conversation, our Thursday conversation here. And of course, we have on the line, we have Miss Claudia Morant-Baker. We also have Hopeton Branford. And of course, hanging out with us here in our conversation here on Jamminsradio. How are you guys doing out there?
We're doing pretty good, are you?
I'm doing pretty good. Mr. Hopeton, how you doing, sir? Doing good. How about Mrs. Baker? How are you doing, Mrs. Baker?
I am doing great.
Yeah.
It's a little wet here, but I'm doing great.
Oh, very good, I tell you. So let's take turn now, because let's introduce the counselor first. Now, this is Mrs. Claudia Morant-Baker. Tell us a little bit about yourself, Mrs. Baker. And I know you're a counselor out there in the Poorest Manchester area. So tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, I am Claudia Morant-Baker, counselor for the Poorest Division, principal of the Alexander Basic School, Justice of the Peace in the parish of Manchester, a member of the St. Toolies New Testament Church of God, mother of 2 boys and 1 granddaughter, passionate about serving, hobbies, swimming, climbing trees, just having fun.
Okay, that's very good. I like that idea of climbing trees, because we all can relate to that, you know. So we can relate to that. So you're currently a counselor for that area, Mrs. Baker?
Yes, I am.
Okay, very good. And let's introduce our next panelist. That's Mr. Hopeton Branford. Tell us about yourself, Mr. Hopeton Branford.
Hi, Professor. How are you? I'm Hopeton Branford, originally from Poorest, living in Los Angeles, California. Passionate about community development and advocacy, and looking forward to this discussion where we can highlight some of the challenges facing the poorest community and how we can collectively hope to move ahead in addressing some of these challenges.
Okay, that's very good. That's very good. And again, a little bit about myself, since we're introducing ourselves here. I'm the professor, Jamminsradio.com. We're based in New Jersey. And of course, you know, we're a community-based radio station. We consider ourselves, you know, we just want to add value to the community. So we love to have these discussions. Our motto is to entertain, inform, and educate. So here's an opportunity for us to educate as well as to keep people informed. So that's what we do here on Jamminsradio.com. Now, let's go back to the counselor, Mrs. Claudia Morant-Baker. Why do you want to run for public office? That's such a drag, isn't it? I mean, but why do you want to run? What inspired you to run for counselor for the poorest area there?
To be honest, I've always been undercover worker. I always believe in volunteerism. I grew up with my grandmother in the community, in the district of St. Toolies. She was blessed with a lot of kids, 19 to be exact, who in turn grew other people's children and in turn grew us grandchildren and great-grandchildren. She taught me how to give back. She taught me that I do not visit a family with empty hands. Always take something for them. So she taught me to be that person who believes in developing communities, but I did not see myself as a politician. When I've always been active politically as scrutineers, runners, indoor agents, PD captain, but did not see myself as a political representative because I've always been a quiet person. So when I was asked by Mr. Vincent Copeland, my predecessor, he actually asked me to come and run. I said, no man, I don't want to be in representational politics. You know, but he gave me a reason, and oddly Shaw, he sent a message to Mr. Copeland to say, Claudia, you need to come and represent your division, because you know when man I talk, we obey. and henceforth I contested the seat in 2011, but I lost. And I saw it as a message to say that, You need to learn more about where you want to represent. And today, when I ran for in 2016, I was successful. And I have done my best with the limited resources given. And I have been doing and continuing to working with people to the best of my ability.
Okay, very good. No, Mrs. Baker, Audleyshaw, you mentioned Audleyshaw. So you're a councillor. Does it matter the party? Because I know that you have the JLP out there, and you also have the PNP, the Jamaica Labour Party, and the People's National Party. So you're affiliated with any party? Any party affiliation?
I am a candidate for the Jamaica Labour Party, but as a politician, I do not stigmatize people because of their political preference.
Right.
I wear my color now because the election is announced and I represent my party. Mm-hmm. But being a city councillor, I do not segregate. I do not see people as PNP and JLP. If you have a need and I can assist, I'm going to assist you. Mm-hmm. Once the resources are there to assist you, because one of my thing is that if your dead is on the board to be buried, JLP or PNP doesn't matter, that dead must be buried.
Right.
And if your child should be educated, and the resort of political alliances.
Yeah,
so I serve the people because I became the councillor for the people.
So I noticed though, because I'm here in the United States, and I noticed that there seem to be a lot of excitement surrounding this next election that's coming up on, I think, September 3rd, where people are out there, showing their colors, whether they're with the Jamaica Labour Party or the People's National Party, and they're out there just showing their colors and being prideful and all of that stuff. How is the excitement? How is the atmosphere out there in Jamaica? We know that we're in COVID-19 era, but what's the excitement? What's the atmosphere like out there in Jamaica in terms of people being excited about, I guess, voting on September 3rd?
The excitement is there as expected because we Jamaicans, we take pride in voting. Many of us, even though the amount that you want to see, the percentage is not where it should be. And I quarrel people when they say they're not voting because I said our foreparents fought for us to be able to vote today. Mm-hmm. Irrespective of your choices, I believe in voting.
Right.
The excitement is there. However, enforcement, where the COVID-19 rules are concerned, are being practiced. And even last night I was in one of my group meetings, and I was explaining to them, there is life with COVID. We must live with COVID right now. And this is what we're going to do. We're going to be taking measures here to protect our people. You must wear a mask at all times. We don't want to see you within certain distances. Even though the excitement do exist, and even though we're not supposed to be touching and hugging, I can't help it sometimes but to do so, but we try not to. You try to keep people at the 3 to 4 feet distances or 6 feet distances because you have to let them understand. What I practice, I tell them, listen, they say, Miss Baker, I don't have COVID. I said to them, listen, I am protecting myself against you because where I travel daily is wider than where you travel. So when I wear a mask, I'm protecting myself against you. All right? Not you against, because, people usually take offense.
Right.
You don't want to do that. So, but the excitement do exist. We take the precautionary measures. This is what Jamaica politics is about. I shout for my party, you shout for your party, but what I hate most is when you disrespected me because of my political choice and vice versa.
Right.
Especially where the derogative comes in and the explicit, and I don't do that kind of politics.
Yeah, that's good though. That's very good. Again, we do have the right to exercise, our, ability to choose whoever we want to represent us, and we have to respect each other's choices, whether you're PNP, LP, or whatever the party you are. So that's a good thing. Now, again, I must commend you, though, Mrs. Baker, because here you are. It seems as if, as you said, you're a principal, and yet you find the time, justice of the peace. Yet you find the time to represent the people of your constituents, which is Poorest. You're a councillor down there. What areas are you responsible for in that area there in Poorest? What are some of the towns?
My division consists of 33 districts. And this is from Trinity, a part of Broadleaf, Hampton Road, a part on the right side coming from Mandeville, Poorest Main to Whitney Turn, Berrydale, a part of Berrydale, Spring Grove, Old Poorest with a little off lane, Redbury into Reeves Road, Watermouth, Hampton Road, Ramble, Harmons, St. Toolies, Victoria Town, and these St. Toolies is a three-part community, so is Victoria Town, so is Harmons. So those are my boundaries. That is under my responsibilities.
Okay. And as a councillor, what do you actually do? Do you actually provide legislations, or do you provide help when people are in need? I mean, I know that you're a justice of the peace, so you sign documentation and so forth for people.
Yes.
But what other functions do you perform as a councillor for that community out there?
My position as a councillor is to seek intervention on behalf of the people. There are certain agencies that are our partners, such as Water Commission. If there's a broken main person's reported, and they're not getting the reply and they call me, I will respond, and then they will come in a little quicker. For example, in the district of Trinity, yesterday I got a message to say that the garbage hasn't been picked up in a while. I made a report, and this morning I got the report from the same lady to say, thank you, councillor, our garbages were picked up. But many times, so that's the Water Commission, that's the NSWMA, which is garbage, JPS, if there's a broken main, lights to be repaired, once I get the report, my duty is to intercede on behalf of the residents. Jamalco is one of the activities in the area. My duty is to intercede. Once there's an issue, then my voice become heard so that people can get the justice they deserve. Rock, which is the highways passing through, that is another issue. Our duty is to intercede on behalf of the residents. There are cases where there are sick people. There are cases where persons are not a beneficiary of pension. They are not beneficiary of the PASS program. They are not beneficiary of the Poor Relief program. So once they are identified, children have difficulty going to school. These programs are there to assist them. Special need children, these programs are there for them. Chronic illnesses, any cases where there is a need, I intervene to assist them to live a better life.
Okay, very good.
My responsibilities are wide, very, very wide.
Yeah, wow. I mean, that's impressive, though. 33 different districts, and including all those areas and all those people that you're responsible for. I just have one more question, and then I'll bring in Mr. Brandford, and he can join the conversation here. What's the economic status of your division, or in terms of men and women? I know that this is pretty much a rural community with farmers, right? Farmers and homemakers and all that stuff, right, in that community. And so tell us a little bit about the people. We know that there's a lot of farmers in that area, right? In Poorest, mangoes and so forth.
Poorest division, as I said, consists of 33 districts, and each district have their own attributes. Sadly to say that one of my districts, one of my communities, is classified as one of the poorest in Jamaica. Very sad to say. Victoria Town and Victoria Town have so many firsts. So many firsts there. The history, the first time the queen had some history there in Victoria Town, and yet still the main source of income in most of my districts is coal burning, farming. And this is a grave concern because many of my residents, and I've always said, it's just from farm to home, not much more. However, the district, the division of Poorest has 3 primary schools, and about 15 basic schools. And I am seeing now, being a principal of a basic school myself, I monitor my children for over 25 years. I have been there. I know where my students are today and what are their level of performance, what they're doing. So we are seeing now more persons going further in education. We're having more professionals coming out of more districts. I remember the other morning when my vehicle met in an accident, I gave a young man a ride. I introduced myself. He said to me, Mr. Baker, you don't remember me? I said, where are you from? He said, this Victoria Town. I said, where are you going? He said, I'm going to the Mandeville Hospital. I just got a job there. And I said, I met him years ago when his mother died, but he has grown. And I beg his apology. And I said, it is very nice of you because I want to see you go beyond the district. I want to see you going out there, getting more exposure, looking at ways to buy a new home, to create a family. You understand? Because I want to see Victoria Town grow. I want to see Harmons grow. So where economy is concerned, our main source of income in parts of my division is bauxite. Mm-hmm. And now the highway is there. Mm-hmm. In my opinion, the rates for individuals can be better. Right. And we have been lobbying for that to make it better, but it is a source of income for our residents. And more persons are being employed, and I'm insisting that our residents get the employment and our out-of-town persons to come in and be gainfully employed when our residents here need it.
Okay, very good. By the way, everybody, you're hanging out with the professor here on Jamminsradio.com, and we're talking to Mrs. Claudia Morant-Baker out there in Jamaica. She's a councillor in the Poorest Manchester Division. We're also talking to Hopeton Branford. So come on in, Hopeton. Tell us a little bit about, do you want to add, what do you want to add to the conversation here? I know that you're a philanthropic human rights advocate. So, what's your view on what's going on, Hopeton?
Well, thank you for having me, Professor. It's always a pleasure to be on your show, and happy to be on this conversation with Mrs. Claudia Morant-Baker, the Councillor for the Poorest Division. As I mentioned earlier, I'm from Poorest, and like many folks from Poorest, I have a actual legitimate concern about where our community is heading. So I have a couple questions for Mrs. Morant regarding her political leadership in Poorest. And Mrs. Morant, you mentioned that you went into politics because you have a desire to serve. And my question to you is, when you first won your seat as the Councillor for the Poorest Division, what issues did you come across that were essentially impacting the growth and development of Poorest?
Well, even before I won the seat, I've identified so much. One of the things that I identified, by the way, thank you, Mr. Brandford, and it's good to hear your voice. One of the things that I identified and angers me is the fact that we have so much potential in Poorest. One is our market. When I watch that market went down, every time I see the market, I walk past it, I drive past it, I have the time, I just drive in and just talk to the vendors there. I become angry because Poorest is a lucrative area. The town of Poorest is a hub. The only thing that is needed to make Poorest the ideal town is a fire station, because everything else is in Poorest. It angers me when I go through my market, and I've written letters. I'm doing all it takes to get attention to the Poorest market, because it must come back up in my hands. It must be renovated and reused, utilized. And Another thing that angers me is the lack of commodities, such as water, such as electricity in district. Water is my passion, because in and around Poorest, the town, the district, my division of Poorest, we have over 15 wells. 15 wells. Our water in Poorest at Hampton Road goes to, most of it goes to Brandford. Where I live in St. Toolies, the wells in St. Toolies, they are irrigation wells. Along the St. Jago Road, those wells serve those areas, but if they combine, they can transform our individual district. Also, in Victoria Town, there are 2 wells. Up in Broadleaf, there are wells. However, most of our residents do not have potable water. And this is a grave concern to me. Our roads are in deplorable condition. Deplorable condition. Serious cause for concern. And before I became a councillor, all of this was noted, highlighted, and presented.
Yeah.
So even now as a councillor, I have done what I can do with the resources given. I remember when I won the CDs a district a little area above the well in Hampton Road. And they have shown me so many letters that they have done everything in their power to get water up there. About 11 to 15 householders. And it's since I am there as a councillor, they are able to, and they have to walk past the well every day to go up to their house. And there was no potable water there until I became a councillor.
And this you said is in Hampton Road?
Hampton Road.
Good.
Right above the well.
How extensive is the water issue in Poorest? Issue as it relates to the claim that residents do not have access to reliable, clean drinking water. How extensive is this issue? How many families are, how many households are, can you describe the extent of this issue as it relates to how it impacts the community?
How the water storage presently or the lack thereof?
The lack thereof.
That's the question. All right. The lack thereof. In Poorest, in my opinion, in my estimate, the district of Hampton Road to Broadleaf to Trinity, they have potable water. When you along the Poorest Main to Old Poorest, to a point, the border goes to Spring Grove, the water goes to a point. Spring Grove is a hilly terrain, it's a 3-part layer community, up on the hill, down in the middle and down at the bottom. Residents who live up on the hill, I have to be trucking water to them for them to get water up there in black tanks. The pipe only go to so far, and residents stood in Spring Grove in a meeting with our present MP and let him know that, listen, you and the predecessors who have the respect for us, because there were pipes, and this is a supporter of the opposition party who stood there and said, I am a supporter of this party. There were pipes down there at the foot of the hill. And when that MP won, he took away the pipe, and the residents of Spring Grove are suffering because there are no water coming to us in the pipes. In Redberry, the water only reaches about 50-60 householders, and beyond that point, the residents are without the commodity. And these are grave concerns to me. A division with over 7,000 eligible voters, and most of these householders are getting water from trucks. And thank God for bauxite. They supply most of my areas because they are mining in the area with potable water in trucks. So most of the district, if I should put a figure to it, about 30 to 40% of the division has potable water.
Wow.
So what has been done or what can be done to, well, more specifically, what can you do or what have you done? What can you do or what have you done to address the water crisis in Poorest?
What I have done, I have written letters to Rural Water Supply requesting extension in the Redbury area. I'm taking it one district at a time. I've also requested extension in 2 areas in the Old Poorest area of the main. I have not gotten a positive response as yet. I'm still waiting on a response from Rural Water Commission, because Rural Water Commission will retrofit the areas with the pipe and will allow residents to connect. I am on the phone. Sorry about that. I will allow residents to connect and pay their bill, but maybe they can get it at a discounted rate for connection, because it would be a gift from an organization to the residents.
Wow. So with those wells, though, I mean, Councillor Claudia Baker, with those wells that they have, I mean, is it a lack of resources, for, say, the National Water Commission or whoever is responsible for just extending the pipes to the various residents? At least they can, get access to water, because you need water to cook, you need water to, to take a shower.
To survive.
Yeah,
you need water to survive, yes.
And if you have the wells there already, it shouldn't be a problem to sort of, tap into those wells to get water to people who really need it, rather than, it's sitting there. I mean, I guess enough hasn't been done on the National Water Commission or whoever is responsible for at least, allocating or getting water to your local residents. I mean, what's your take on that in terms of, just providing them with water? Water is essential. I mean, here in the United States, everybody sees Jamaica as being surrounded by water, so we shouldn't have a water problem, which is a little bit, crazy. But what's your take on that? The fact that, shouldn't you be able to get water to the residents up the hill or around the corner and all that, since they need it?
Well, they do need it. And you see, the political game is just like climbing a ladder. Right? So I am, as a councillor, I am like the second to last step down, because the foot soldiers are at the bottom. The people, the residents would be at the bottom. They would be at the bottom. So I am like the second to last layer down. The main representatives in providing certain commodities would be the person above me, which would have been my MP. All right? Their voice is a little louder than mine. I will continue to intercede and seek whichever agency are willing to provide more commodities for my residents. I will continue to use avenues that are available to me. And as I mentioned to you, I have written to Rural Water Commission, Rural Water Supply, for their assistance. I'm in the process of covering one of our main parish tank under their responsibility, because it's just open now. So when I wrote to them, I got a response on that. I just re-fenced another parish tank recently. The residents have to take their bucket to go to get water there. And I am trying to get clarity as to why there are so many wells in this area, and yet still our residents do not get the commodity as how they deserve. I am trying to get clarity from Water Commission. I'm trying to get clarity from the persons above me. Why is it our residents are not getting the commodity in pipes as they should?
Mrs. Morant, how long has this water crisis been occurring in Poorest?
This crisis would have been because I'm 45 years old. I have my potable water at my house under a special program. I think it was a J6 program that was sent to my area from I was about 23 years old. I have my tap water here. But beyond my house, the school that I'm principal for is, if I cross behind my house, I'm 3 minutes away, but if I go around the road, I am 5 minutes away. And Jamalco is the one who supplied that school with the commodity.
Jamalco, which is a...
Because it only stopped at the point.
Okay. So these are serious concerns for residents. I am in the process now of penning a letter now to NIC, National Irrigation Company, requesting a bore from them so that more water can come into the different... I'm living in St. Toolies. So I'm saying, if I request a bore from you, send the water to the parish tank, let it gravity feed back to the community. Yeah.
Now, so this is what I plan to put in writing to them.
Mrs. Morant, you mentioned that the MP sits above you.
Yes.
Listening to you, what efforts are being made so that yourself and the MP can work together collaboratively to address this and other issues such as, well, this issue, the water issue?
As many persons are aware, there's a political divide between my political leader and myself in the constituency of South Manchester, because we share different parties. And I reminded him a few weeks ago that, listen, whether you accept it or not, I am your councillor, irrespective of our political preferences. Where communication is concerned, it is very limited between both of us, because he has his political choice. He works in his arena by himself and do not sensitize me on the process of whatever is taking place. So where his interventions are, where water is concerned, it's when I'm in a public meeting, then I would be aware of the intervention that he made and vice versa. You understand? There is not that level of communication that do exist, where we sit down and knock our heads together to see how well our resident can be beneficiary of the commodity because of the political divide. And as I told you earlier, I don't see representing people as a political divide. People need to be represented. These commodities need to go to residents for them to be comfortable. That's how I see things. But I know he doesn't share my views.
Yeah.
So I just do what I have to do.
Well, let's talk about the roads. How extensive is the issue of roads needing to be repaired or even to be built?
Very. 80% of our road in Poorest division, it has deteriorated immensely.
Okay, so we're talking about the roads, we're talking about the water. And you're saying that there seemed to be a sort of, constraint. You're constrained from really doing much because you're not, your superior or the person that you report to is above you. He's not really working with you to make sure that you're addressing the needs of the people. Now, you're heading into an election right now, Mrs. Baker.
Might I just interject there?
Yeah, go ahead, sorry.
Might I just interject? I do not report to him directly. He meets in Kingston at his meeting at the Member of Parliament all goes to Kingston and meet with the Prime Minister. We are at the divisional level.
Okay.
We meet at the municipality in Mandeville. So we meet with the mayor of Mandeville and they meet in Kingston. So I do not answer to him directly. I answer to my mayor. and to the local government minister, which is Mr. Desmond McKenzie.
Oh, yes. I've seen his name out there. Yeah, so, but again, you know, I mean, from what I'm looking at, from, you know, just being a bystander looking on, it seems as if we definitely need to work better for the people and to not do the political game. Because, again, the people are the one who are suffering in terms of roads and water. Water is a basic necessity. And if the people are not getting water, I mean, they're not going to be too inclined to even vote for you or to trust you. Do you see what I'm saying? Because you're so close to them. And I know you're writing letters and you're doing the best you can, but at the same time, it seems as if, you know, your hands are tied in a sense. Is that what I'm reading?
Yes, it is. It is. They know, because I'm very transparent when it comes down to representation of politics. I let you know what the commodity is given to me as an individual and what I can do with it, and let you see what I can do with it. So they know that my hands are tied. I can only do so much with whatever resource is given. But when it comes down to intervention to better the lives of my people, I am going to continue to let my voice be heard.
Very good. Now, I'm concerned, you know, Hopeton, I know you have another question there, but I'm just reflecting on Poorest Market, because you mentioned the market, the closure of the market. And I grew up out there in Jamaica during the days when the railroad used to go through Poorest, and there was so much bustling of activity. Poorest was a central location. You're absolutely right in terms of oranges, the farmers benefiting, you know, from tourists or people just traveling through that area. And the Poorest Market is a very central point. You're right. So you're saying that the Poorest Market is closed right now?
The Poorest Market has been closed for about 10 years.
Oh, wow.
Yes. I am a product of that Poorest Market, because I used to pick the breadfruits and the oranges from my grandmother to go there to sell, to take care of us. So I know the value of that market. And when I heard the market was going to close, maybe about 8 to 10 years, I had a serious concern as to why more intervention was not made. But when I went there and I was a councillor and I intervened, I did some research as to why the Poorest Market was closed. They were telling me that it was not lucrative enough to manage itself. That means it was not generating enough funds to sustain itself. You know, and I sat down, because I am very proactive instead of reactive. And I sat down and I looked at what I would have done if I was there at that time. But then again, it doesn't make any sense to cry over spilled milk. The best I can do now is intervene and see what can be done today to make it better for tomorrow.
Right.
What plans do you have? What would be required to have the market reopened, and who would be required to be part of any coalition or any organized effort to get it reopened?
The market is the property of the Manchester Municipal Corporation. Someone has made a proposal in the renting of the area where the slaughtering would have taken place. I think they're still in discussion with whatever the expectation is, or the standards set by the Ministry of Health along with the Manchester Municipal Corporation. Those discussions are on the way. I have asked my superiors I have asked them if someone is interested in leasing the market or renting the market, if that can be done. They said yes, it can be done. But in the meantime, I do have a proposal on the table and an estimate to be prepared for the renovation of the market. I can prepare it, I can make a request for it. It doesn't mean that it will be granted. But as I said, I continue to intervene on behalf of the residents. And sell the idea. Go ahead.
Whose decision it would be for the market to be renovated and reopened?
It would be the decision of the Manchester Municipal Corporation, the committee that exists to vote or to approve or disapprove of a proposal make. It can be the local government's decision to say that if we present a feasible proposal to them as to say why the market should be reopened. We can identify if there's funds there and where the funds will come from to do the renovation there to get back Poorest to its glory.
So, as it relates to the market and to Poorest, whom in Poorest would lead what, if any, efforts for this to happen? That is, for the market to be renovated and to be reopened. I imagine it would require some kind of collective effort.
It would. And the residents of Poorest, as you know, would want to see the market reopen. Many times the challenges are finances. Who are willing to stand up? Where would the finances come from? As I said earlier, they're willing to rent or lease the market. How many persons do we want to capitalize on this? These are questions that need answers. And it's only us, the residents, of course. Go ahead.
No, go ahead. I'm sorry.
I was just saying, it's us, the residents of Poorest. Maybe someone would look at it and say, you know, I would want to see back the Poorest in its former glory. Let me invest here, or let me lease the market. Make a proposal to the municipality to lease the market or to rent it, and then bring it to its former glory.
Have you discussed the renovation and the reopening potentially of the market with the Member of Parliament?
As I said, our communication is very limited. No.
Yeah.
But I have discussed with my colleague next door. We have put a proposal. I put a proposal on the table and he endorsed it on why we need to have the Poorest market renovated.
And who is this colleague?
My colleague, Councillor Mario Mitchell, who is the sitting councillor on the opposite side of the road, a councillor for the Belfield division, which leads to Poorest.
So is there some kind of time frame for this proposal to be tabled and some kind of action taken?
The officer in charge should have presented an estimate to us already, but we are out for this month in August. There will be no meeting for this month for September. I will make an intervention and to see where it is on the table because she should have put it together already.
Okay. And how long have you been the councillor, Mrs. Morant, for the Poorest Division?
I have been the councillor since November 28, 2016 to date. 3 years and counting.
And what would you consider to be your major accomplishments since being a councillor?
I've done so many, I've touched so many areas, so many transformation. I was able to complete about 30 pieces of roads throughout the Poorest division. Pieces, not a lot because I'm not giving a lot, but what I have done is taken the worst areas throughout the division. Areas that you would think you're crossing a river to get to where you want to go when you're driving on a road. So I've taken the worst areas. I have assisted almost every basic school across the division with one thing or another. In Victoria Town, I assist one with a black tank and retrofitted for the bathroom facility, tank base and everything, along with other things the school needs, such as maths, books, etc. Another assist with a stove, the St. Louis Basic along with the Aki Partnership and Jamaica. I'm able to put in a flush toilet, 2-stall flush toilet, a little deck roof, a tank on top, and retrofit it completely. The Alexander Basic School also is a beneficiary who are able to complete some building, the section there of the building that need to be done. There's one in Scott's Pass that able to get windows and doors, and Harmon's Basic able to get a painting, brand new painting work finished there. In St. Diego, I've assisted with them in so many little areas. Furnitures for other schools, signs at the Ramble School. I partner with especially educational facilities to bring them up to standard. Maintained cleaning of drains, working. I remember when I got the poor relief list, I got 33 names on the list. And to date, I have gone over 100 additional persons to get assistance under this program on that list. You know, fire victims have received homes, indigents have received houses with the intervention of my intervention to other agencies, partners such as Food for the Poor and Jamalco and the municipality. We were able to put these indigents in homes, not sleeping on the street anymore. And also a partnership from Paul Davis, persons known him as Badaras. He assisted, just completed a building there in Hampton Road to put a gentleman in who was homeless. So what I do is go around and I partner with different groups, different agencies who are doing things, transforming lives. The Victoria Town Primary School, I have assisted with tiling out there, providing a tin set for that, drums for garbage collection. You know, I've distributed over 20 drums throughout the division for garbage. For the first time, St. Toolies have seen garbage truck coming through this year because of my intervention. You know, there's so many accomplishments. If I should name them, I'd go all night. I maintain every ball field across the division, make sure that the youths have where to play. When I received this ball field, the trees, there were trees on them, actually. Not just rope, not just bushes, trees. And every 3 to 6 months, they're cut and persons can have their fun there. Numerous other achievements over the period of time.
And you've done that in 3.5 years?
Yes, sir.
Is there anything that you wanted to have accomplished that you did not accomplish? Because I'm pretty sure that some folks might say that, you know, there are things that should have been done that you didn't do. Can you point to anything that you were unable to accomplish that you had either promised to accomplish or had wanted to accomplish?
I do not make promises. I set goals and I aim to achieve them. There's so many things that I wanted to see accomplished in my tenure, because, you know, as you know, every 4 years there will be another local government election. I would want to see more roads being completed. I'd want to see, as I mentioned, the Poorest market being retrofitted. Oh, how I want to see that happen. I want to see Harmon's Community Center fully grilled and being able to produce youth empowerment, children being able to go there for evening programs, because that community center, my junior councillor just installed 5 fans, gave them a table and a chair in that area. And I'm in the process of grilling it now. And it can produce and mold young minds. There's a community center at Ramble that is just put down there, just not being utilized. And these are things I want to see being utilized in the division where I am serving as a councillor for the time being. You know, these are things I'd want to see achieved. But I need to have that push from the community. When I want to fix your community center, fight with me to get it done. Because I need your partnership, I need your help to be able to complete that task that is set before me to do. Many times the challenges are great.
Is the Poorest Community Center in your division?
No, it is not. It is in central Manchester.
Okay. And I have just a few more questions. In terms of budgetary allocation to the Poorest division, I think yourself and the sitting member of parliament are allocated funds for, in this case it will be for the division, in this case it will be for the constituency. Do you have any idea how much is allocated for these purposes? Do you know? And how is the money being spent?
Are you referring to directly myself as a councillor or the MP?
Well, yourself, and if you have the answer to the other part of the question.
Well, for myself, we are not allocated much. Each councillor is given road maintenance of $2.5 million every 6 months. And, that's like a drop in the bucket. We're given drainage maintenance. That is done, I think it's every 6 months as well. Or every 4 months, like 3 times for the year. And that is for back to school assistance, we're given $500,000. For beautification, and this assists with a little project I need. For example, I mentioned the school, it's $200,000 per month. We can only do so much. During the COVID, we were given a special allocation of $600,000 to assist with our shut-ins. I have to get partners on board to assist over 800 shut-ins throughout that period of time, because 600,000 is like a drop in the bucket. But so that is what is allocated to us as councillors. We are given housing assistance. We started getting housing assistance of $170,000 over like every 3 months. We have not received since January. So these are a challenge for us. It is not enough to touch every life. It is never enough. For the MP, whatever budgetary allocation is allocated to every MP across Jamaica, it is announced by the government of Jamaica how much each MP are given to utilize throughout their individual constituencies. For example, in December of last year, I'm sure that one stands out in front of me. Each MP was given $20 million. $1 million for garbage collection, $600,000 to assist with roads, and the other for assistance with bushing, while the councillors are given $1 million to assist with clearing of roadways, debushing of roadways. So the comparison is very fast, but I said I do deal with transparency. Whatever I get is for the people. They must be aware and of how it is utilized.
Yeah, very good. By the way, everybody, hanging out with the professor here on Jamminsradio, where we're talking to Mr. Hopeton Branford. He's a philanthropist, human rights advocate, and we're also talking to Mrs. Claudia Morant-Baker, who's a councillor in the Poorest region down there in Manchester, Jamaica. So we just want to get a feel of what's going on down there in Poorest, Jamaica. We know that Mr. Brandford is a resident or a product of that area, so I guess that's why he's extremely concerned about the plight of his neighborhood down there. And we know that he's a member also of the Tree Foundation that's provide fund and does non-profit stuff in order to beautify and enhance the poorest community also. So we just want to put things into context a little bit. But you can proceed with the conversation there, Mr. Brandford. And again, Mrs. Baker, thank you so much. I mean, you're really enlightening me in terms of what's really going on in your community there. And I really appreciate you taking the time out to be as transparent as you are. Because, I mean, I'm not in the area where you're at, but I can see exactly the efforts that you're putting forward and the needs and of the people down there in your community and the efforts that you put in to make sure that their lives are better. So I really appreciate you coming on Jamminsradio to talk to us about that. But you can go ahead with the conversation, Mr. Brandford.
Yes. Mrs. Morant, one of the concerns I have is, and what appears to be an opportunity for yourself to collaborate with other political leaders in Poorest to get more work done on behalf of the community. It seems to me that if there was more collaboration, then more roads could be fixed and better water systems provided to the community. And so I'm curious to hear from you, what are your plans going forward to improve this obviously lack of collaboration that seems to exist between yourself and the other political leaders in Poorest?
Growing up as a child, Granny always say 1 until o'clock, right? So I have extended my hand to my MP. And as I reminded you, I told him a few weeks ago that, listen, we have to learn to work together. We are representing the people. It doesn't hurt to come and say, Mrs. Baker, what is happening here? How can we make this better? If I even reach my hand out, then that's it. So I just stay in my lane. I just do what I have to do with whatever given to me, and wherever I can get additional resources, I utilize it according to.
Okay, understood. You mentioned earlier about the bypass. Can you give the people of Poorest an update on the status of the bypass, and what are your views on the bypass?
Okay, I can only give so much because, as I mentioned, the ladder of where we all are. When I met with NROC, they made it pretty clear that the first point of contact will be the MP.
And NROC is, and tell us, who is NROC or what is NROC?
They are the body that is the governing body that is responsible for China Harbour, who is constructing the highway from Mineralized into Williamsfield.
Okay.
So they are the watchdog for them. So they are the governing body for them under the government.
Okay.
When we met with them at China Harbour, they made it clear that the first point of contact will be our MP. So I have to be forcing information from our... Tell you what I did was get the number and talk directly to NROC officials to get information on what is happening, where it is happening, when it is happening, and how it is happening. So far, what I am aware of, where the highway is concerned, there is a site that they lease a property next door to my house where they build their base.
And which
you must place whichever MP they're going to their constituency, they are the first point of contact. So if they're in Maypen and Mr. Mike Henry is the MP, he is the first point of contact. I can talk about South Manchester. So my MP in South Manchester would have been Mr. Michael Stewart. So he would be the first point of contact where communications are concerned. The highway. Right? So what I have known so far is that the clearing, the bushing of the alignment has already started. Some areas tractors started doing clearing, additional clearing. And persons are aware that they will exit in Williamsfield. Alright, residents are being relocated. I had to last week go in a meeting with them, with some residents who they weren't being treated fairly. With discussion with them and with the intervention of a professional who evaluator who valued the houses, they get a better rate. I had to drive into Kingston for that meeting because actually it's really my family land that was impacted that I'm aware of. And as long as I am aware of whatever is happening, my intervention do fall in there. But many times people keep it quiet and I'm not aware. So where the highway is concerned, as I say, it is good. It has its negative and it do have its positive. So it is coming through, it is impacting lives in a positive way and a negative way. Because persons are being asked to relocate and their property are not compensated for. So I let them know that this cannot be done. You have to talk to these residents. You have to give them what they need. You cannot tell a resident to move out of their house within 6 weeks. And you have not given them a dime to be able to do so. You understand? So these are a serious concern that is there. But we welcome this opportunity. But at the end of the day, you have to be respectful to our residents.
And I do know that some residents express concerns about potential desecration of graves.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Since that demonstration, what I am aware of, those graves have been removed. It was an oversight where there was 3 graves that were impacted. From what they're explaining, they said to us that because these graves were in existence long time ago, they were like stone and dirt. They didn't, but I said, how can you start to work without you have people assessing the ground? And because of that now, they take a different approach where persons are actually going in to clear the areas, to assess areas if there are any graves or anything that need to be removed. That is the approach being taken now.
Okay.
Because they learned from that issue in Redberry.
I understand. So there were also concerns raised that meetings were scheduled for the community to meet with NROC and other representatives, and the community turned up, but no one from these agencies were present. Other issues related to notice and the ability or the opportunity even to consult and to be heard.
Well, these issues are serious concern to us, and the issues that we put on the table to them. How could you? I have asked them. There was a meeting slated for March for the Poorest community that had to be postponed due to the COVID outbreak. When I asked for a reschedule, we actually made preparation to accommodate them. There was a misunderstanding somewhere there where that meeting is concerned. However, the residents did meet and they agreed to come in after, but the demonstration brings them in a little earlier to meet with the residents, especially in the Redberry area. They had committed to come in and have a meeting with the CDC in Poorest. I did not get a call to say whether or not, and it was honestly, now that you mentioned it, I did not even remember to call and confirm if that meeting, because they would have gotten in contact with a member of the CDC to confirm the date. Should have been the 4th Thursday in July that they met with the CDC in Poorest. But honestly, due to the hecticity of what is going on, I did not touch base with Mrs. Mary to confirm if they had called her to confirm that date, or Mr. Osborne from SDC. But they should have met with the CDC and then come now plan for the big community meeting from there, apart from the one that was held in Redberry.
So I imagine that when that is scheduled, you will provide that information to the community at large.
I will, because I reminded them that meeting in Redberry would have impacted the people in Redberry. Going forward, you're going to other communities. You're going into Hampton Road. You're going into Trinity. These people need to know what is happening.
All right. Where will the exits and entrances be into Poorest from off of this proposed bypass? Because this seems to be a very controversial issue for the residents.
It is a controversial issue and a concern for most residents. They're saying the only exit that will be in Poorest will be along the present Melrose bypass. However, the residents, when they first came, they had no intention of allowing the residents of Poorest to access that bypass. But the residents told them point blank that, listen, you are not going to take our bypass from us. That is a gift to us from the mining company. So they went back to the drawing table, and now they're allowing us to continue to utilize the bypass, and will be giving us wider spaces now to go into Mandeville and to come out of Mandeville at our own, without an expense to us. So we have free access to enter and exit from Trinity into Mandeville and back. But if you're coming from Kingston, from what they last explained to us, if you're coming from Kingston, you cannot just exit and come down. You have to go into Williamsfield, turn around and come back down in Poorest, because there will be a permanent median in the middle of the road. So there will be 2 lanes on the left, 2 on the right.
Okay, good. Good, thank you. Any thoughts on the Poorest Community Center?
You know, the Poorest Community Center is now a heritage site. For years, I sat on the board during Mr. Copeland's tenure. We met with Hart. Proposals were made for that center to utilize, and today it has not come into fruition. Poorest Community Center, in my opinion, should have empowered a lot of young people in Poorest and its environment. It should have done a lot. Every time I go there and I look around, all I say to myself is, what a waste. Believe it. I am really dissatisfied with what is happening there, and because of that, many times I don't touch on that topic. Because being an educator myself, I believe in utilizing, because in the future I want to see as many of my community centers more than young minds, or better tomorrow. That's what I want to see happening around me. And MPs can use their funds to say that, listen, we are going to use the Poorest Community Centers to empower, to do this course or that course, just as though it is being done now across the different constituencies across Jamaica. I am educating persons from Cross Keys or from Southwest Resource Center out there in Newport. I'm going to use my funds to do this or to do that here in this community center. Use the Poorest Community Center as well to empower young minds. Why it is not being utilized?
In whose constituency is the center? I think that's in the Central Manchester constituency, right?
It is the Central Manchester constituency, Mr. Peterson.
Where do you see Poorest heading in the next 5 years?
I see Poorest as continuing to grow. I really do. Because I know you're the person who walks the town of Poorest, Mr. Brandford, and you look in every little area, and you see the business the businesses that are growing in and around Poorest and what has deteriorated. You have seen growing business, thriving business, and when I look at Poorest now, have 3 lucrative hardware and growing. And you go there any day of the week and you get your commodities and the different restaurants, bars. Yes, I need to see the market reopen. But I know Poorest has the potential to grow.
Have you had any conversations with anyone regarding some kind of comprehensive socio-economic development plan for Poorest, or at the very minimum, some kind of plan wherein the high rate of unemployment that exists among the young people can be alleviated by bringing into Poorest some source of sustainable employment for young people?
All right, in our organization at the Manchester Municipal Corporation, we have an officer in charge of things like those. I have sat down with her on more than one occasion, and we look at different areas of the division and how we can do what where. We look at greenhouses. We look at how to really find other opportunities for young persons throughout the area. I even brought her to the springs in St. Toolies to look at how well we can utilize this area in helping to generate funds or even making it into a tourist attraction. As you know, we have the dinghy up the road from us. All of these are put there. But I know with time everything will fall in place. We partner also with SDC, who them know the ins and outs of the constituency and everywhere what can happen where. This is here in my head. But how will we work together and bring it out? How many persons want to see it come out in their communities? When we are ready to bring it out, who are willing to partner with us? These are the things that we have. We sat down and we are going to work out over a period of time. Because the proposals are there. The opportunities are there.
But I'd like to suggest to you, though, that in pursuing these goals and these objectives for the community, that we find a way as a community where all the critical stakeholders can participate. Because I do not think the community development, just as how nation development, is not predicated on you alone, the councillor, trying to make this happen. It has to be a collective, shared
partnership. Yes.
And I'm very
I agree with you.
That partnership might not exist, or at least there might be opportunities to improve it. I have two more quick questions, and then I'll turn it back over to the professor. But Mr. Robert Chin, who is the JLP candidate for South Manchester in the constituency in which your Poorest division lies, has claimed that Poorest has been abandoned. Do you agree with Mr. Chin, or do you disagree with Mr. Chin that Poorest has been abandoned?
To be honest, I am between I know you're looking for a direct answer.
No, but it's just an honest response from you.
Honest response. In my opinion, I know more could have been done for poor. That's what I know. A lot more could have been done. More attention could have been paid to poor. More opportunities could have been in poor. So, he is new to the area, and from his eyes, he has his opinion. He's learning the ins and outs of the constituency that was handed to him to know within a month. And he's learning, and from what he sees, he saw abandonment. When I drive through Poorest Division, persons are like, seriously, Councillor, my mayor in Manchester look at me and tell me it's the worst road in Manchester. My CEO look and say, Poorest has the worst roads in Manchester. In the entire Manchester, 4 constituencies, and the roads that I am councillor for are the worst roads. In his word, he classified the way he saw it. Too much neglect.
I believe so too.
Yeah. Yeah, Hopeton?
Well, my final question to Mrs. Morant before turning it over to Professor is, you're seeking a second term.
Yes.
My question to you is, do you deserve a second term? Can you be trusted by the people of Poorest to contribute to the growth that the community obviously would like to see occurring in Poorest? Why do you deserve a second term? And can you be trusted to lead us as a councillor going into the next 5 years?
In Jamaica we have a myth to say that fishermen never say fish stink. And self-praise is no recommendation. And being head of an organization, I always say to my staff, I value your opinion. Because I have 2 eyes, and with their additional eyes, I might see something that I missed with my 2 eyes. But if I should do a self-evaluation of my individuality, I think I have served unselfishly and I have served effectively to deserve a second term.
Okay. Well, I hear you. As it relates to Mr. Chin, several folks have said to me that Mr. Stewart has been in Poorest for the last several years as a member of Parliament. In fact, I think the PNP has been representing Poorest as a parliamentary representative.
Over 30 years.
30 years and
30 plus years.
Yes. And Mr. Stewart has been representing us for the last 4 years. So he walked into, or he inherited whatever the challenges are, albeit from his own party, but not on his watch. But folks are saying that he has been in the community. They see him, they know him. But they have argued that Mr. Robert Chin, who is his opponent running on the JLP ticket, has essentially been parachuted into the community at the very last minute. They have complained that the Aki group doing an interview with Mr. Chin, that Mr. Chin evaded our questions and did not seem to have the energy nor the motivation to answer questions. Did you get a chance to listen to the interview? Do you believe that Mr. Chin evaded the questions? Do you believe that, as some folks have stated, it's insulting to the community to have him attempt to represent us after only a couple of days, essentially, on the ground working?
I did not get the opportunity to listen to the interview today because, as you know, he's a new candidate. And our responsibility as a member of the team is to present it to the residents wherever they are across the constituency. When you do an assessment, he will not be able to know as much of the boundaries within days of the position, but there must be a candidate on the ground. How effective he will be, we cannot know unless he becomes the sitting candidate MP for the constituency. How effective he will be, we can't know until then. But when I do sit down with him on a one-on-one basis, and I listen on the plans he have for the constituency, that night when he did that interview with the Architry, we had just finished a massive workers meeting in St. Toolies, where he met with 200 and odd of his election day workers, and was about to go into an executive meeting with the political directorate, which is the divisional head and their executive, which he was, when he did the interview, he was between time. And I noticed he can be a keen observer because he was in the army. And I said it to him, I said, sometimes you tend to be quiet, Mr. Chin. The people want to hear you speak to them. You know, you have to let them want you. Tell yourself to them. And as I said before, we don't know how effective, I know it was parachuted in the constituency, but how effective he will be at the end of the day is to see whether the people accept him or not. Because residents have mentioned, yes, we know the sitting MP. We know he has been there for a period of time, but lots of persons are disgruntled. And until you go on the ground and find out what disgruntles so many people, everybody has different issues. And you will always find that more and more issues. Everybody has their opinion. But our duty, and as a part of the team, is to sell our candidate. And how effective it will be or not be is if he come out victorious.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, Councillor Morant-Baker. Professor, I turn back over to you, sir.
Yeah, thank you very much. By the way, everybody, hanging out with the professor here, with Mr. Hopeton Branford. He's a philanthropist as well as a human rights advocate. And we're also talking to Mrs. Claudia Morant-Baker. She's a counselor down there in Poorest, Jamaica. And again, I tell you, this is a great discussion, though, because again, I'm so removed from the politics and what goes on in Jamaica, and just to hear Mrs. Baker here, just be very transparent and just being very honest about the numbers and everything else, and coming on Jamminsradio and talking to us about that, we really appreciate that. Again, I don't have much else to say other than it's a pleasure for me just to hear what's going on down there in the Poorest district or the Poorest area, because I'm familiar with that area. I passed through that area. I grew up passing through that area, so I'm familiar with that area. And just to hear of the plights of the people out there in the community and the struggles and the fact that representations are needed, and roads need to be fixed, water supply needs to be provided, and of course Mrs. Baker here also mentioned a fire station. You need to have a fire station there. So there's need. And you make a compelling argument there, Mrs. Baker, as to why you should get another 4 years, in terms of what you're doing for the people at the ground level. And maybe you might be a little bit more effective if you, move up to the MP level or something, where you can actually make, more changes or be more effective in terms of bringing changes to your community. But I must applaud you, and I thank you for coming on Jamminsradio and sharing with us. What we're going to do, I don't want to torture you anymore, but, any final words you want to say out there, Mrs. Baker? Any final words you want to say to people out there, your views or whatever, you want to talk about?
Is that a proposal to me because it went out just now?
Oh, sorry. Yeah, I was just making a proposal there to say, is there any final words you want to share with us in terms of, what you're looking to do and, your passion? Again, I'm an educator myself, so I can relate to the principal, you being the principal of Alexander Basic School and being a justice of the peace and affecting young lives and changes and all that. Is there anything you want to, share with us? Any final words you want to share with us?
Well, first I just want to say thank you for accommodating me to be able to do this interview. But what I want to see happening as a political directorate, as a person who is passionate about education and about seeing people living a better life, trust me, I have seen so much. Sometimes when I go out there and I come in, I cry. And I will call my boys and I say to them, listen, when I get old, please don't let this happen to me. There's so many situations out there that it is heart-rending. And my aim is to see people get what they deserve. As a political directorate, proper roads, proper water. I have districts in my area that do not have electricity in this era. The opportunities are there for them. My aim is to continue if the people of Poorest elected me a second term, if or when they elected me a second term, is to see as many of these lives transform in getting these commodities in their homes for them to live better, for us to have roads to lead to our district, that when there is an emergency, our elderly can go to the hospital in a better fashion. In most of my districts, there are bike taxis in these areas because guess what? There is no road to accommodate cars. Residents are cussing. They can't put their car on this road. I want to see people live better life. I want to see people uplift. I want to see youth being empowered. I want to see them not have to worry about fears to go way into Newport to educate themselves when we have so many community centers in and around our town that they can just walk to go there to get their skills. My passion is to continue to serve the people of Poorest to the best of my ability. And even though sometimes I feel discouraged, I have a message many times in just one text per day. A positive message, and I want to make, and I wish to see the individuals around us when you elect a political directorate or somebody to represent you politically, and they're not serving. You have the power. You have the power to say you weren't effective enough. Let me give somebody else a second chance. If I did not serve you effectively, you have the power, utilize it. All right, thank you very much.
Oh, you're welcome. Thank you so much for coming on. But hold on, let's go over to Mr. Brandford and